announcement. I've learned how to flip my video in OBS. Now, everything looks normal when I'm recording and looking at myself, but that doesn't matter. So, this is a very unprofessional, candid, behind the scenes view of your data place. It is a website I'm building. I'm going to remove that. That looks better. It's a website I'm building. It's a platform. I'm building it with the community. And I'm just doing it for myself first. And after that, I plan to, make it public, commercialize it a bit, do all that stuff. And I plan to document most of the journey. Because I'm learning while I'm doing it all of the technologies I'm using, reading marketing books, stuff like that, because it's just all of these things I've never bothered learning because I'm just lazy. So I want to walk through what I've built so far and some of the reasons why I started working on this. Today I was doing an action in my programming job where I was like, I really wish this data platform was finished, because I would just use it and it would turn around what I needed to do in much quicker time. So I will just go straight into describing it, and then I'll get a little bit looser and we can talk about anything at all. So first of all, create page. Here's just a bunch of ideas I've had so far for different sorts of places and different sort of creations, which come with their own different organizations. So yeah, you can see data set, project. I've got little tooltips for these. Organization, just an idea. Lambdas, transformations, SDKs, workflows, places, and an API. All of these up in the air, just chuck them in there. I'm just going to create a project for sake. I'm just going to make this hashtag demonstration, select that does nothing. It's wonderful. And that will bring us into our project. So this is where things start getting worrying. Each project is a container. So this is our ID 24. Each project has its own associated container. I really need Docker experts to tell me if that's a good idea. And I'm just going to click it. The stats are pretty good, I think. 4 megabytes of usage, pretty low I/O. CPU's doing its thing. And we can open in terminal. And from there, we have a few things. So we have a few YDP commands. We also have user requirements and requirements. Find cat requirements. See PyInstaller and requests. Something, whatever. These are not meant to be editable by the client, and these are to be edited. So I'll go cat user. Took me a second. There's nothing in user requirements. So the first thing I'll do for this Python project is I'll edit the requirements. It'll load them in. And I'm gonna just bring in BS4 number, and I don't know, just BS4 number pandas, and save and install. We can run the same command. No, we can't because we're in a dumb shell. And we have BS4 number and pandas. And then if I scroll down, it's currently installing those dependencies. So that's one of the things I wanted in this, is I didn't want to have to worry about running commands for dependencies. I wanted it to be quickly obvious what is required in the project. You can see it's still installing. We get some warnings, which are standard error, and everything's installed. Great. So now what? Well, I'm going to just finish this. This took me forever, but we have a menu, create, And we have an editor, which is also cool. And we have auto saving, which is whatever. So let's just do hello from main pie. Right click and run. Hello from main pie. Temp ID, execute, blah blah blah, and so forth. We have some types, and let's try importing BS4 number. What else did we import? And pandas. And we will run. And that's done. New ID. Done. Let's make some random numbers. In a less efficient way. mp.random. Let's actually do a million. And then return RNGs, and we'll go x equals random numbers. We'll also import number. Run that. It took 1 second, so let's do that many. That took 1.5 seconds. Alright, let's do 500,000 or 5 million. Yeah, 5 million. We can see it builds a temp exec. That's something special, secret, whatever. It's executing, I presume, if we're lucky. Maybe it just didn't, which would be wonderful. Anyway, let's try jitting this. Maybe we'll have some more luck. It's probably a RAM thing, actually. It doesn't have much RAM. It's nice. Well, we can ignore that because it's not my job for it to work, clearly. Anyway, I'm just trying to show the features. Stuff does run. And exec files exist to execute anyway. We can do folders, we can do deletions, all this stuff, run. But I want to talk about a few things. So this is sort of set all the boilerplate up for the app. Where I want to go from here is the real thing to discuss. So I'm building a data platform from the ground up, and I've built all of the UI stuff. UI stuff's obvious, like straightforward, but the real next parts are the most valuable things to do quickly. So hard to explain that, but what I mean by that is, like, for example, these type and attributes for each file. One thing I implemented previously, and I don't know if it'll still work. Oh yeah, it still works. Is this page, which was a sort of prototype of the dataset concept. This won't work now because this is an old component, but basically the concept was you could create a dataset using what looks like a Lambda function setup, and you can do something like I don't know, random numbers, and then in the runtime you would write some code that would populate random numbers, and that would be saved as a dataset. Now, one of the cool things with that is you've sort of created your own new piece of reproducible code. And it also, it becomes a data set in its own way, because that code can now sit as a little container and be used as a sort of asset to yourself as a developer, and you can keep that with you. So both the code and the resulting data set can be utilized again as a sort of value add. So, I mean, a good demonstration of that is random numbers. I mean, it's not a good demonstration, but Another example is a bunch of like a function that pulls from analytics, or a function that pulls from sheets, an emailing function that you use every now and then that would be really valuable to just be able to just chuck into a project and just start emailing things like reports and stuff, logging, all these things. We, as developers, I find we often don't use in every project because there's a big header. So yeah, that's sort of the concept here, is that I want to build things that make the friction of implementing something a lot lighter. Like the burden is a lot easier to take on. So for example, I don't write tests a lot. I do when it's a really good production, like a pharmaceutical application. But if I'm writing something for myself, I'm not writing tests. But if, for example, we go back and we have some main function and we do something like, I'm just going to delete these. We do something like, I'm just going to make sure this even works. Yeah, cool. We do something like import YDP, and then we have some job. Let's say that's I just like this as an example. We have some job. It may be make or 100 randoms. And then say, we're going to do a test. Say that test is if len 100 randoms equals 100, or let's just say it's not, then we, this failed, exit. Like the amount of times I've done this, a billion. Or, my favorite one as of late, assert len 100 randoms equals 100. This is wrong. So those are common, but what would be cool is if you can just do something like ydb.tests or test.assert 100 randoms, 100 randoms equals 100. And what you want to do is you want to go not enough, not the right number of randoms. And then maybe you want to set that to dev email, or just email, whatever that is. You want to set up some schedule or something. And there's a logging component or a tests component, which, if you write the email flag, will do some code. Like just stuff like that you can header into any application instantly is awesome. So I mean, like this import YDP thing, I've already hashed that out before in the previous project. And that's something quite straightforward to implement. So yeah, that's my sort of thinking and philosophy for this project. Again, just sort of building it for myself because there's a few things I want out of a platform that I use. And I would like to be able to just turn around my projects quickly on a web UI rather than build a new repo, do all this stuff. I'd like to be able to just sit in a web UI, quickly do a few things, log out, and have all of the headers sit in the cloud. And I'm talking being able to time my application, being able to automatically email, being able to have like a ensured execution, containerization, just all these things. I don't want to have to build into every application I build. I just want these headers there. Other things I like that I want to build is I've got a solution to being able to import any file anywhere. So for example, say this main thing, I really like this main bit of code. Maybe I have like a cool main function. I want to be able to run it anywhere. And maybe it's in Python 2.7. Who knows? Whatever. I've got a way to be able to commonize. I call it commonization. Commonize it to be able to be invoked and executed anywhere. And it doesn't matter about the dependencies. It doesn't matter about the context. The only thing you have to ensure is the files are in the position it would look for, stuff like that. But that sort of thing where you go, I had this code over here and I want to bring it back, but it's a bit of work to do it. I can't be bothered doing it. Just that sort of stuff I'd like to just get rid of as far as developing and engineering goes. So, yeah, that's that part of it. So I just want to quickly talk about the Docker setup I'm using. So I'm using Docker exec for all these commands, and I don't know if that's the most efficient way to do it. So this YDP command file, there are a bunch of other files, but I've hidden them. But I haven't hidden this one because I'm in development mode, obviously. But there's all these. These are all the commands that my backend will execute on a Docker container to make all this stuff work. So when I click on the file, it runs a docker exec command, which is like a Python YDP command, read file YDP command. That's what's happening under the hood, and I think that's probably not the best way to do it. I think probably building a micro server and then just exposing a port or something is probably the best way to do it. But I'm yet to get there in Docker yet. You can see there's a new file command for when I do a new file. So the backend has to provide a path and name, new folder, delete folder, all this stuff. And here is the destruct stuff. All the, this is quite cool. This took me a bit to write, but this basically builds the directory structure. So I can go, API, and then I keep doing main.py. I'll go do something cool like toilet.py. It's pretty dope. So yeah, that sort of, all that stuff is all contained here, which right now is editable. I mean, I could just break it, but I've been pasting in the new versions. But yeah, that's sort of the start of that. That's mostly what I've done in the last few days, is set all this stuff up. The next sort of things I plan to do is to build the dataset functionality and the transformation functionality. So my thoughts around that are, you have these parent data sets, and then you can apply transformations to them, and you can import data sets or transformations wherever you want. So I might, I always use it for argument's sake, but I always have like say a data set generator for random numbers in my examples, and it's a data set that can be re-invoked as many times as you want. You can set a timer to re-invoke it or whatever. But yeah, the data sets are just Python code that generates a data set. So you may have a data set that gets generated by a Google Sheets function, which pulls in a Google Sheet, assigns it to a variable. And then instead of overriding that raw data set, you may want to start adding transformations to it so that you can version your data. You have your original data, and then you add a transformation to it, and say you have a list of stores and their addresses. You add a transformation, you now have a data set under that called stores with their latitude, longitudes, and that uses the Google API, which is going to be in the YDP SDK. The way all the tokens and everything works is automatically managed for you. So you just import the SDK. Like, I think the sheets, I wrote the SDK for the other thing, but I think it was like, I think I made it like Python semantics, so it was super easy. I think it was like sheet equals, or let's just say rows, ydp.sheets.open sheet ID, sheet name, which was optional. It defaulted to sheet 1, and then there was something else. Anyway, that was like I tried to build that sort of basic open language instead of like read sheet rows and stuff that a lot of SDKs use. So I'm gonna try and I want to make it as easy to go from learning Python, which I plan to make for free on this platform. I want to make it as easy to go from um, learning Python to deploying something in production, and I somehow want to work websites into that. I'm still not sure how. I've got no idea how, if I'm being honest. But I would love the ability to write your API in here using some sort of routing system like Next.js's. And also write your front end somehow. I think I'll have to compromise for the time being because I was thinking, oh, why don't you just write your React components here? But then I don't really want to become a Next hosting company because I find, React hosting company, because I think that Next.js and Vercel does that the best. Incredible. I've heard some hiccups and funny stories with them, but my experience has been that their hosting has been incredible and lean. So if there's a way I can work out to be able to write your code here, but then you can't preview it, maybe I can set up a preview development server, stuff like that. Like this is all written in Next.js. This has been the easiest UI I've ever built. That sort of, I'm not going to go down that road yet, but I think in the future I really want to build a really nice UI that you can just turn around a website really quickly. But yeah, they're most of my ideas. I've got so many ideas for this. Like it's really exciting, but I've got to really earth myself and build the MVP features because I do want to get this in front of people. I do want to get people's feedback. I want to get thoughts. I want to get criticisms, everything like that. Because it's been incredible to build so far as my skill set. And I really want to share that sort of journey because it's been so valuable for me already and so fun. So I want to share that. But thanks anyone for watching, and I plan to do these sort of sporadically, but every time I have something to showcase or an idea or some concept or any of those sort of things, I'll just chuck the video on and go over it. Thanks guys.